So I saw Antebellum, and it was I actually saw this back in September, but I knew I wanted to give this a solo review by about the half-an-hour mark, so I decided to wait a little bit, and since October is the month of spooky things, why not review this new horror movie? Even though it's not really a horror movie, but we'll get into that. I mean, cinemas are currently closing down in my area, so I won't be able to review the October spooky movie releases anyway, so this'll have to do for the new stuff. Because unlike a lot of other movies, this film was smart and decided to go to digital. Now, this was a movie I'd actually been excited for since I first heard about it, but then it just left my radar after a while. But then, like a month before the digital release, I found out it was getting a digital release, and I found out about the reviews this film was getting from critics who got early screenings. And seeing those reviews, I kind of dampened my expectations, because when you hear the phrase worst movie of 2020 thrown around that many times, you begin to wonder if the film's actually gonna be any good. Regardless though, I did go in with an open mind, and I came out kind of liking it, but also kind of really not. There are a lot of aspects to this movie that are very impressive and well done, and there are a lot of aspects to this movie that are just genuinely terrible. Although I do want to note to anyone who plans on watching this movie, the marketing is so goddamn misleading. This is marketed as a full-on horror movie, but it doesn't actually become a horror movie until about halfway through. And for some reason, the trailers give off the impression that the main character is glitching through timelines or something. Seriously, what the hell is up with these trailers?
Hello?
That's over.
I mean, yeah, there are absolutely horror aspects within the first half of this movie, but to say that this was a horror movie would be kind of dishonest. Anyways, as for the actual movie, it was mediocre. Easily the best aspects to this movie are the cinematography and the musical score, particularly within the opening sequence of the film. The one-take shot that this movie opens with is genuinely impressive, and I find myself constantly returning to the music used within it. I enjoyed the way the film was shot as a whole, although there were some moments where the color grading was a little bit distracting. The framing was very well thought out. I enjoyed the shot composition throughout this movie. And as for the music, a lot of shitty horror movies just throw whatever they can on to try and make it seem like it's scarier than it is, but this movie's score actually respects what's happening within its film. And rather than pretend that there's more tension than there actually is, whenever there is actually tension in this movie, it manages to build off of it very successfully. Also, there's a scene with Juice by Lizzo, so automatically this is the best film ever made. I really liked this movie's color palette, the lighting was fantastic throughout the entire film, the costume and production design was amazing, most of the acting in this movie was really good, and Janelle Monáe really fit her role perfectly. The sequences revolving around Uber rides and trying to get out of bed quietly were genuinely really tense. The main character was very likable, and there are some very satisfying moments involving her, and as the film goes on, the writing gets much better than it was when it started. I mean, yeah, there's some dumb shit in the second half of this movie, but it's a vast improvement over the first half. As for what doesn't work about this movie, there is quite a lot. The pacing in this movie is kind of disastrous, to be honest. There's a lot of moments that drag on too long, whilst others that feel more important go by way too quickly. There are so many aspects to this film that really would have been better if they'd just been more developed, but this film just didn't bother for some reason. The main character in this movie is literally the only character who gets any development, despite there being a lot of important characters in this movie. And it's especially weird because every other character in the movie who isn't white is just a plot device for her character to be able to do things. I know I'm not the #1 expert on how to make a movie like this, but maybe when you're making a movie that covers racial tensions, give the other black characters in this movie personalities. Most of the black characters in this movie didn't have any personality past what they do for the plot, and that was a very weird decision. The only ones who don't fall into this category are the main character and the loud best friend stereotype she hangs around with. Her daughter and her husband exist as a motivation and nothing else. The other enslaved characters are completely expendable and only exist to serve a purpose for her storyline. It was genuinely a bizarre decision, and I have no idea why they decided to do this. And even looking past that, it doesn't really offer any insight into the trauma that these characters are facing whatsoever or how it affects them. A lot of people have called this movie out for basically just exploiting black trauma for shock value, and honestly, I kind of agree with them. And if the movie just simply developed anything whatsoever, then maybe this would have worked somewhat, but it just doesn't because there's no effort put into this and everything goes by way too quickly. I mean, sure, these scenes where these characters actually interact could have had some length or weight or development, but why don't we put all our time and effort into the torture scenes? I mean, yes, I understand why these scenes are long, but at the same time, if any other scene in the movie actually got any length to it or any development, maybe this wouldn't just feel like a shock tactic. It made perfect sense in the opening sequence because it was giving an impression of the setting and the tone, but after that, nearly every time it happens just feels unnecessary unnecessary, and I maybe would not feel this way about it if anything else was developed instead, or if it didn't feel like most of the effort went into these sequences. Pretty much the first half hour to 40 minutes of this movie is just these sequences with no development to any of the characters whatsoever. For some reason, the film waits until the middle of the movie to develop any of its characters, and even then it only puts any effort into the main character. What the fuck? Anyways, the editing in this movie was also very bad. I mean, yeah, there's some sequences where it was well utilized, but oh my god, there were some moments where the cuts were just jarring. As I already mentioned, I thought most of the acting in this movie was good, but wow, the bad acting in this film was bad. Eric Lange definitely tried his best with the material, but he didn't really do it for me at all. It's especially distracting because there is nothing different here between his acting in this movie and his acting in Victorious, so it's very hard to take him seriously as this slave owner when all I can see is Psychowitz. That being said, he still fared better than Jenna Malone. Holy fuck, what was she even trying to do here? Her character's meant to be this kind of creepy Southern belle, but she just hams it up so much that it's just laughable the entire time. It does not help that she is consistently given the worst dialogue in the entire movie. She has this speech near the end of the movie, and oh my god, does she ever do a terrible job delivering it. And I'm honestly at a loss as to whether or not this was a directing issue or a writing issue, because I know Jenna Malone can act. Hell, maybe it's a casting issue, but it seems like it's more likely to be the script or the direction, because this is a directorial debut and her dialogue is really terrible. There are some child actors in the movie and some of them are good, but oh boy, the creepy little girl that was shown off in the trailers is not good at all. And it's very clear that the filmmakers don't find her that creepy either, because otherwise they would not have re-recorded these lines in post and doubled them.
Well, hi, don't you look beautiful? Are you going to the 49th floor too?
Shh. You'll get in trouble for talking.
I think this movie's biggest problem overall, though, is probably its script. I mean, yeah, it's got a very well-developed protagonist, there's some good dialogue occasionally, and there are moments where the writing is genuinely really good, but it's not consistent with the rest of the script whatsoever. Even looking past Jenna Malone's character, there is a lot of terrible dialogue at points in this movie. Again, the rest of the characters are very underdeveloped. The film features a few cliches, which isn't an inherently bad thing, but it does nothing with them. What was the point in having the main character get jump-scared by a horse and carriage? It kind of felt like they knew that nothing was really happening, so they just shoved a jump scare in early on so that they could try and keep the audience interested. No, seriously, we are a horror movie. Please believe us. We actually are, I swear. Again, this problem could be easily fixed with better marketing and a more developed script. However, I think the biggest problem with the script overall is that it doesn't make any fucking sense. And so to really tackle that, we gotta go into spoiler territory. So if you don't want spoilers for this movie, then skip to the timecode on the screen now. 3, 2, 1, go! So basically, the big twist of this movie is that black people are being kidnapped and being taken to these unknown secretive locations. And at these secretive locations, white people get to reenact slavery and Civil War stuff and Confederate stuff because they want to. And honestly, this as a twist on its own is really not a bad twist at all. In fact, I actually kind of really like it. I also really loved the way this was revealed to the audience. Basically, we cut back to the slave area of the movie, and Janelle Monáe is pretending to sleep, and Eric Lange gets up because his phone is ringing outside because he forgot to turn it off. And at that point I realized, hey, if this movie just trimmed a lot of the shit out of it, then maybe this could have been a really dope Black Mirror episode. And I mean, yeah, I know the film's not that techy or anything, but if you watch the episode White Bear, then you will understand exactly what I am saying. So yeah, this is an interesting twist, but unfortunately it negates some of what we've already seen. So there's a character early on in the movie whose only purpose is to be pregnant and then have a miscarriage and kill herself, because for some reason the main character needs a motivation to actually do something useful and try and escape. And so the way she suffers this miscarriage is at the hands of one of the white men pretending to be a Confederate soldier in the Confederate days. He doesn't give her permission to talk, but she talks without realizing, and then he beats the shit out of her and she has a miscarriage, and he's like, oh shit, oh no, and he starts panicking. And so for some reason they presented this in a way that was supposed to make the audience feel bad for this character, even though he is a Confederate douchebag who just beat the shit out of someone for talking. But what's weird is that he has remorse for doing this, but doesn't have remorse for black people being killed at this place or being enslaved at this place. It doesn't even seem like he knows she's pregnant pregnant, he just feels bad because she's in a lot of pain. The guy's morals were inconsistent, and it really didn't make any sense for him to be at a place like this where he was actually able to choose if he went. Also, in the kidnapping process of Janelle Monáe's character, they try and make her feel unsettled before they actually kidnap her. So the main evil lady, played by Jenna Malone, pretends to have lost her room key, and it asks the cleaning lady if they can let her into her room, and somehow this works for her? The cleaning lady literally just lets her in with no further questions. It felt very weird and stupid, and it probably would have been easily avoidable. Just cut to her in the room or something. You don't need to show how she got there. Weren't there people working at the hotel anyway who were part of your scheme? Why didn't you just use one of them to get in? Was there any reason in particular you had to be the person that was in the room anyway? But anyways, after the twist happened, I was very confused as to why people were losing their shit over it, because I thought it was pretty good, and I was like, why are people so mad about this? But hey ho, there's another twist coming up. So basically, Janelle Monáe kills a bunch of the main bad guys, and then she steals a horse, and then she kills Jenna Malone, and she escapes the fuck out of there. She successfully managed to give her husband her location through Eric Lange's phone, and now she's getting the fuck away from this place. And she rides the horse through a Civil War battle, and then rides all the way to a building, and it's revealed that she was at a Civil War roleplay park, which is very open to the public. Initially, it's heavily implied that they're in the middle of nowhere, which is why no one's finding them, but they're just at this very easily accessible park. It's not even like it's abandoned, it's a very public area which is still open and which people are pulling up to and entering as she escapes. Before Jenna Malone's character dies, she's like, hey, we have multiple locations, you'll never win, you'll never get all of us. But I guess that just means there's more roleplay parks? It was such a weird twist, and I'm confused as to why they had it in there, because the initial twist was actually really good. But nah, fuck that, let's just have all of the villains in this movie be extreme LARPers. I don't even know why they felt the need to do this when there are other things they could have done that would have been more effective anyway. Fuck, you could have ended the movie with her passing out in the horse's sirens approach, or you could have ended the movie with her finally making it to a road or something. You could have had a cliche ending and it would have worked better. It is a literal amusement park. How did no one find out about this? Also, how the fuck is this an amusement park? The people showing up to this park at the end of the movie are just in regular ass clothes and everything. They're taking their kids, and it looks like they're just here for a day of fun. But in the end credits, there is a shot of them tearing down the park, so I guess the entire park was just where the slavery was happening? Do they have spare Confederate outfits for every time someone shows up here? Also, how the fuck do they have so many slave outfits too? I mean, yeah, I get it. Rich white people are rich white people, but this is still a little bit excessive. And also, why does Jenna Malone think that no one else is going to find these parks if they are literally just slave plantations with amusement park signs outside of them? How did no one at any point ever realize what was going on here? Especially considering just how large a scale it is. Do you mean to tell me that no one realized what this place actually was when it initially opened? Also, there's not even a fence or wall around it or anything. It is just an open area of land, and a lot of it at that. And still nobody figured out what the fuck was going on? I mean, yeah, I get this is set in America, the country where nobody noticed that there are over 64,000 black women missing. It's an ignorant-ass, racist-ass country that doesn't care about a lot of its citizens, so I understand that aspect of it. But when there is this much open land dedicated to it, and when you look at the scale, there is more land dedicated to the actual slavery than the Civil War reenactments, how is it possible that no one figured out what was happening? The initial twist in this movie was really good. Why did you need to pull the rug from beneath us when the initial twist was really good and this new twist was really shitty? Anyways, that concludes a lot of what I have to say about this movie. On the whole, I am very conflicted about it because it really does have some excellent aspects to it, and this is a movie that I can absolutely recommend off of those excellent aspects alone. The opening sequence in this film is probably one of my favorite scenes in any film this year, to be honest. And whilst the cinematography and music are consistently great, I wish the rest of the film was up to the level of that opening scene. Because yes, I do think there are plenty of scenes in this movie that are very effective at what they go for, and I think that there's some very good scenes in this film, but wow, they don't make up for just how many bad ones there are too. It is a shame because there really is a great movie trapped inside of this, but as it stands, the film as a whole is just kind of okay. And yeah, I could definitely recommend it, but I don't think I'm ever gonna watch this movie again. I'll probably revisit the opening scene when it inevitably gets posted on YouTube a few months after the film's release, and so far this is a musical score I have actually been returning to. But past that, I don't think there's any real reason to rewatch this, which is a shame. Does this film work as social commentary? Kind of, but also kinda not. Does this movie work as a horror movie? Kind of, but kinda not. I don't think this movie's as bad as a lot of people have been making out, but I definitely get why so many people genuinely despise this. And if this had been a theatrical release, this probably would have gotten a lot of discourse, and I could see it being a very polarizing movie if people actually got the chance to watch it. Or if it had been marketed properly. I am interested to see what these directors do next because this is their feature film debut, and whilst this movie is very messy in a lot of ways, it's very clear that they have some grasp on how to actually make a good movie. So here's hoping whatever they make next is better. Overall, I would recommend this movie, although I do feel like I need to note that if you are looking for a good horror movie to watch this Halloween, or even an entertaining horror movie to watch this Halloween, this is not the film for you. Largely because this mostly isn't a horror movie anyway. But if you want something competent to watch, this is probably a good movie for that. It's not terrible, it's not great, it's just kinda okay, and I would recommend it overall. Also, please start casting Janelle Monáe in good movies, and I'm giving Antebellum a 5 out of 10. I don't know if it's closer to a 4 than a 6, but I think it's a 5 out of 10 movie, yeah. Hey guys, just putting this on the end of this video because I'm realizing not a lot of you guys actually know that I release music, but I decided to make a Halloween song because why not? If this video has to deal with copyright bullshit and it doesn't go up until after the 9th, then this is available on all streaming services now, but if it's before the 9th, which I'm hoping it will be, then this will be on streaming services starting on the 9th of October. So yeah, check it out when you get a chance because I think it is pretty good. And after this month, there will be more new music coming soon, so keep your eyes peeled for that. Or I guess your ears, I don't know, I don't regularly promo music, how am I supposed to know the terminology for this shit? Anyways, that is the end of this video. Like, share, subscribe, I'm bad at outros, and I'll see you in whatever I do next.